Today, in the 21 minutes that I have, I'm going to be talking about truthful podcasting helps you reveal who you are. Now, we talked a lot about authenticity, we talked about truth, but I can honestly tell you that podcasting has evolved my life. It's not what I thought it was going to do, but if you've listened to my show, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, about what my show is all about. So a little bit about me. I just hit the button.
Yeah. We'll go right in there.
Cool. All right. I've been married for 16 years. My wife, Megan, she's amazing. She just texted me 2 seconds ago and asked me how my presentation was. I told her I was walking up, and I told her I was nervous. All right. So I have 2 kids. I have an 11-year-old son, Nathan, and my daughter, Abigail, is 13. They are at a field hockey party right now, so if I wasn't here, I'd be hanging poolside, drinking Coronas. I was a corporate executive for 20 years. I actually started my HR career 3 blocks away at Bally's. I was an HR representative there. I did door-to-door sales after college. My father-in-law, when I moved in, after getting my car repossessed out of his driveway, he said, what do you know how to do? I said, well, I interview people, and that was my first HR job, which led to a 20-year career. I'm a teacher. I enjoy finding out how people learn and then packaging in a way that makes sense to them. That is so much fun to do. And one thing I really enjoy is being a student myself. When I learn how to learn things, I can teach myself basically anything. I'm a fine art grad. I studied fine arts. I graduated from York College with my friend Kelly back there. And I had a minor in radio and video. So I've been messing around with radio and audio, tape decks, video cameras, no matter what, since I was a kid. I'm a coach. I enjoy coaching people. I have coached lacrosse athletes. I coach my kids. So coaching is a big thing for me because it's an opportunity to get the most out of people. I speak, I MC. I live in Blueberry, capital of New Jersey. It's a town called Hamilton, about 25 minutes away. So since I started podcasting, I'm a local podcaster, I get a lot of opportunities MCing events. And I'm a gamer too. I game, that's what I do. And I'm a podcaster. In January 2015, it's kind of in a rut. I was having a difficult time making friends because as a late 30-something, I pretty much started defining myself that I was a father first, I was a husband first, and eventually when my kids are in college, I'll end up making friends. My wife would go out, I'd have no problem. She'd say, hey, can I go out on Friday with your friends? Go ahead. And then my wife said something to me. She said, when was the last time you called John, one of my best friends? And I said, I don't know, it's been like 3 months. And she said, what kind of friend are you? I said, what do you mean? I don't need to talk to him all the time. She goes, but friends talk. So I had one friend, I was helping him build his YouTube channel, doing all that video and radio on the side. He's a sports conditioning coach, has a successful business these past 5-6 years. I had all this equipment. I listened to podcasts for about 10 years, bought The Idiot's Guide to Podcasting, and ended up doing my first podcast in January. My podcast is a 200-episode podcast about making connections. We say looking back while moving forward. So I pick a topic, I bring either myself on the show talking about an experience, and hopefully from that topic you can connect with it somehow to continue to move forward. It's my way of just passing some wisdom on, and my legacy too. Because one thing I really enjoyed making tapes and videos as a kid, it was leaving something behind. The one thing we all have here is the ability to live forever. So please do it, put it out on the internet, you'll live forever. But one of the things I started asking myself is, I do all these things. So I'm a husband, I do parenting, I game. But I went through this evolution last year and for the years before it that I was really starting to lose sight of who I was. I didn't know who I was. I couldn't identify with what I wanted to be. Everything was identified by something else that I did. And I thought the more stuff I did, the more definition I would have. I would be considered a successful career person. I would be considered a good dad. I would be considered a great gamer. But I was starting to feel extremely empty. And I started asking myself, it's not what we do that makes us who we are. It's about what I do that's important, not who I am, right? If I keep doing things, that's the things I'm going to be remembered by, my legacy. I did this. This is one thing I totally convinced myself, which it would never happen. I was an HR executive for a long time, went to a lot of conferences just like this, and then introduced somebody that would walk up, big suit from Comcast, right? Executive, blah, blah, blah. And then introduce him and say, I want to introduce you to Bob Jones. Bob Jones has a master's degree in this. He's on this board. He served in this, started this company. And I would sit and look at that guy and go, someday. Someday that's going to be me. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be on a board in this, but I did nothing. Yet I added so much value to doing something that I would be valuable and like that guy if I did all that. When in my head, I knew I would never do that. I'm not going back to school. I studied art, for Christ's sake. I'm not going back to school again. So one thing happened a year ago. Now I tell this story. This is probably the first time I'm going to tell this story to this many people. Some people I don't know. If you look at the picture on where we signed over there, it was a picture of me laying on the ground. And that's one of the scariest pictures that's ever been taken of me. About a year ago, I realized after a long cruise to Alaska that I did not like who I was and where I was. I don't know, any of you guys here, midlife crisis? Anybody? You know how that feels? It's awesome.
Yeah.
So on this boat, I'm with my family. I'm totally disconnected from work. There's no reason for me. No one can find me. As an exec, my CEO was so pissed at me, he couldn't get in touch with me. But it was the most amazing thing because every day was a joy. We were taken care of nonstop, and I was fully present with my kids. Fully present with my kids and my family. And I started going through this evolution of realizing that I don't want to be myself anymore. All these things I did, all these things I thought were defining me, I didn't want to die that way. I started looking at my life thinking, I made it 43 years and I can't believe it. Is this the path I'm on? Is this what I'm going to do? So I spoke last year about self-disclosure. I talked about sharing things. I really enjoyed that presentation. And I befriended a few people here, and one of the individuals I spoke to was Erica Blocker. She was a podcaster here last year, and Joe did a speech at the end, and Joe says, we had a great conference, and blah, 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 and I'm standing there, and I planted seeds to my wife that I was unhappy with what I was doing and who I was, and my wife does not emote like me, my wife doesn't talk like me, very different type of person than how she expresses herself than me. And I looked at Erica and I'm clapping my hands and I said, I don't want to do what I do for a living anymore. And it was the first time I said it. I said it. The scariest part about that is I was a high six-figure salary person with an art degree. I fell into it working 3 blocks away. I was able to buy a nice house, cars, pay off debt, all this, had tons of money, but yet I was deciding I don't want to do it anymore. And the scariest thing, and I don't know if anybody's experienced this in this room, when you decide you don't want to be something, the world doesn't give a crap. So then I decided I want to do that, and the moment I walked out of that hotel, I had to pretend I was somebody else. When I talked to my wife, when I talked to my kids, when I went back to work, and when I did my podcast. I talk a lot about what my life and my experiences, but the hardest part was getting on and trying to unconsciously say things on that podcast, almost crying for help. And there was a lot of podcasts from, even Neil was on, he was on my podcast, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that on another slide. But the scariest part was, how can I use my podcast, the one thing that belonged to me, on getting through this? Not only was I pretending, we talked a little bit about depression. Depression sucks. It's the worst. All you want to do is get into a car and drive away. Every day I wanted to do that, every day. Then you go through apathy and you don't care why you don't care. It's the worst thing ever. And I needed to do something because the world did not understand what I was dealing with. So in order to figure out who I was, I needed to use podcasting, this thing that I started 5 years ago to make friends, to pave a way for me that it was solely me. What can I do and pull myself out of it? Because by the way, as an HR executive, you don't want to admit that you don't have your stuff together. Because every 10 minutes in my career, people knocked on my door and said, you know what, I hate my manager. You know what, I want more money. And we had to go, okay. That was something. I had to listen to other people's problems. That my job wasn't to tell other people's problems or tell my problems to other people. But it wasn't a good idea to go on my podcast and say, you know what, I haven't told my wife yet, but I really want to quit my job, or I don't want to do this, or do this. But it led to things like my kids asking me in that depression, why are you so unhappy, Dad? And a lot of crying, and it was awful. It was really, really bad. And some of the people in here, they're dear friends of mine, know this. They talked to me during that time, and mentioning that, especially someone like Amy. I was on Amy's show. That definitely was one of those things, how my podcast started to tell me who I was. Don't be frozen by fear, be motivated by it. I was on the Chasing Dreams podcast last year. I don't remember everything we said. We said a lot. But there's a question that Amy says, and she asked me about being scared. And now the craziest thing about fear is it freezes you. The scariest thing is to admit who you are. I'm not happy. Oh my God. So many people in relationships and people are just stuck, and they'll complain about it all the time. And it's so easy to say, well, dump him or get out or quit your job. Nope, they're terrified. They're just terrified to make a change. And the hardest thing was, the only way I was going to make a change is I kept moving forward. And the irony is, when Amy asked me that, my answer was, you can be scared to death, but the only thing you need to do is keep putting one foot in front of the other. Like, keep moving. It doesn't matter what direction you're going, just keep moving. And that was a moment, one of these moments that completely triggered that, yeah, Nick, you're scared to death, but you can't stop moving forward. And she sent me this really cool bracelet that it's like an old penny. I lost this on a job. I dropped this in a field, and then 10 minutes later, I look over and there's a guy wearing it. And I went, oh, wow, that's so cool. Guy's got the same bracelet that I have. And I looked down and mine was gone.
Aww.
But I keep this here and it says, don't stop, keep going. I wear this every day to work. It goes on my hand at night and it comes off. And this is one of the most amazing things. It's weird, it's psychology babbled, whatever. This thing does not leave my hand. And it reminds me that that's what I said to her. So that was starting my path on understanding how to figure out who I am. I'm not afraid. I don't want to be scared. I don't need to be scared because no one cares. It really comes down to that. No one cares how afraid I am, so why should I? Listen to yourself. When you do podcasts, you do a lot of dialogue back and forth. Sometimes you share a lot of things with your guests about you that just need to be reflected back. I did a podcast that Dave helped me out with. He was my sound guy. Live podcast at a brewery with 3 women. And the goal was, at the end of the podcast, what's my first tattoo? What's my first tattoo? We did all marketing. It was awesome, right? It was loud. Yeah. I drew a big poster on the wall on an easel with my head. Kids, we put permanent markers. They were drawing at me. And all that time going through it, it led to the scariest, weirdest thing. And it's kind of inconsequential, but the way she said it, as we're talking about why are people getting tattoos and all the meaning that they were, I couldn't connect with it. And one of my co-hosts looked at me and said, why the F do you want a tattoo? And suddenly I realized, I don't. I really don't. So I did a month-long worth of marketing and realized right on air that, no, I don't want to. All right, cool. So sometimes we want to think a certain way, and we know the truth in our head, but it takes something, dialogue, conversation, a connection with someone, to just have it bounce back to us. Whether or not it's okay to be scared, or it's okay to change your mind. And this was one of those things, Dave, that kind of said to me, well, all right, well, I can change that. That wasn't so scary. And I just plowed through it. We posted it. It's awesome. It's such a weird thing. Too bad I don't have video, because my face was like, oh, man, that's me. All right. Foster honest relationships with those different than you. All of us, we talk about avatars. We talk about promoting our podcast to the right people. By the way, someone likes your show that's not even like that person. You get an email from somebody like, who the hell is that? But one thing I learned, and what I didn't have with all those years of being an HR executive, is compassion. I didn't care for people. It's weird, you get some of you that are ready to launch your podcast, by the way, you should just launch it on Monday, don't wait till the end of the month. You get a fan and then you're like, no, not enough, I want another one. No, it's not enough, it's weird, right? I want another one, another one. It's the weirdest thing. But yet you forget all these people care about you. There's people that follow my Facebook group. There's people that listen to my podcast and comment. I never met them before, but I appreciate them. I truly learned during that process last year and this year what compassion is. How do you care for people? It's so warm. It's not superficial. These people take time to listen to you all the time. They take your life, things you say, and connect it to their life. They tell people about it. They take time out of their life, breaths every time they listen. So compassion, I made friends with people I never would have met, ever, if it hadn't been for my show. Okay. See if I do that, I might even come under. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
Believe in your worth. Neil. It's a life-changing moment for me. In August, it was posted August 8th. I just checked. Usually what I do is I get someone on the show, I warm them up. I don't do a lot of pre-interview stuff because I really like getting to know people and capturing that moment. So Neil and I were on the show. We talked about him being a documentarian, about how it is to be a god. That was so cool. It's like being gods. And at the end of the show, usually when I cut it down, when I shut off the microphones, I keep recording. And you guys get, when you're done with your show, you get a pretty big high. You're like, ooh, it's awesome. It could be like 10 o'clock at night. You're already going to get a bowl of cereal or something. And he said one thing to me as we were talking. He said, as we talked, it was at a time, it was after the Alaskan cruise, and he felt the insecurity in my voice. And he stopped and he said, Nick, you've done it. And I held on to that because not till then did I realize I'm good at this. I'm good at this. I believe that I'm good at this. I'm not the best, Don't have 500,000 downloads, but it doesn't matter. I'm good at this. And we wait for affirmation, wait for people to tell us that we're good. We want it from our audience, we want it from this place. But you gotta believe that you're good no matter what. Some of you are fearful to start your own podcast because you're afraid you're not gonna be good. So what? Who cares? Who cares? No one cares. Okay, people do care. But believe that no matter what you put out there, it's good. In going through the process last year, and I never want to experience that again, if I hadn't started podcasting and just deciding to record my voice and telling stories about my family, my kids, my weird relationship with my father, which ironically led to my father, and he's in a nursing home now, and now I'm his primary caregiver, that now I have a relationship with, which is really weird. He's in his 80s now. I never would have learned who I was without turning on a microphone and talking to someone else about what's going on. And some of you do podcasts on things that are interesting. Don't ever hesitate, and I talked about this last year, don't hesitate to talk about you. Like, you know what, that really bothers me. Or yeah, you know what, that kind of makes me nervous. Don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid of that. Because if you deny yourself that, you're going to be lying to yourself. Every time you try to do something, you pivot on this, you do this podcast, you're going to hate yourself. Because you'll be 2 years in going, God, why did I do this? You know, I thought it would do this. I thought it would give me something. I think the biggest value we get is not just what we do, because we can do a billion things. It's just who we are while we do it. Now, in December 2000, even though I was unhappy with my job, things kind of worked out. I got laid off. 20-year career, I was sat with my CFO, kind of gave me the heads up. The CEO sat with me, didn't even look at me when my CFO fired me. And I had one of the best 2.5 weeks of my job there because I wasn't scared anymore.
2018, Nick, not 2000.
Thanks, right. Fact check.
Fact check.
So I bring the rap. So, being that I helped my friend build his YouTube channel, my friends always, again, people tell you things about you, Neil did as well, that I have a knack for teaching people things that are complicated. One of the things I really enjoy doing is getting the most out of people when they want to put themselves out there. So we have a lot of podcast producers here. What I do is I work with my clients to help them where they have no online presence, to build their confidence to be able to talk, just like some of the things I talked to you about, to share who they are, because people fall in love with people. They really do. That's why you go to the bakery in your town. That's why you go to the specific cashier at Wawa. People connect with people. And I also do a lot of directing. People feel very uncomfortable in front of a camera, so what my job is I sit with them and spend 2 hours coaching them before we even turn on the camera, or telling them when they say something good, and tap into that. So I started Independent Productions. It's my first company I started. I have clients, one of them's here, Kelly. Kelly does a podcast called Doing It All with Kelly P. She's amazing at what she does. She only has 21 episodes. She talks about, she profiles things to do things local. It's very niche, Travis. And I think she's amazing, and I can't wait to see what she does. I don't give compliments like that to everybody, because if you have something good to say, say it. If you don't say anything at all. And then when we talk about passion and being happy, ironically, I was hustling after I got laid off, and networking, doing this and that. I was at a networking event at a Chamber of Commerce, and I decided to just start talking to people. Guy walked up, guy I never met. He said to another guy, listen, it's so hard to find house painters. I've been painting since I was 14 years old. I effing love painting. I look at this room, I would break this room down and paint the heck out of it. I have a passion for painting, but I've never charged anyone for it. But I have all this experience with social media marketing, I'm a graphic designer, and I thought, dude, I can blow this up. I can take everything I know and start a painting business. So in June, I accepted a job to paint a 2,600 square foot house. Didn't use an ounce of tape. Don't use tape. Painted the whole thing. It's my first customer, which led to another customer, which led to another customer, realtors, and it's all because I have a warm handshake. I say hello to people. I send them something nice in the mail, and I take care of my customers, and I give them peace of mind. Karen, one of my, I got her on the ledge. I've been talking to her for like I got to get to her house, give her an estimate on her trim.
4 months, and haven't come out and give you an estimate yet.
One-star review.
Oh, whatever. So last year I went, and again, building all that confidence and talking to people like Neil and everyone here and having people in my life like Dave, I was able to take everything I learned by sharing my story and myself on my podcast to learn who I was, rather than focusing so much on creating my worth on what I do. because what you do does not define you, because tomorrow you could do something else, and you don't want to forget yourself every time you make a pivot like that. So since then, I left a very, very, tell my wife, very lucrative HR career to be happy. Now, it definitely comes with its ups and downs. So if anyone here is looking to change careers and become an entrepreneur, it's really hard because, like with anything, the people around you are affected. But understanding when you bring that level of compassion, that really helps. I hear those people, and I understand that. So now I'm a business owner. I own 2 businesses, and it's blown up. It's crazy. You know what the cool thing is? I showed up here. More people talked to me asked me about my painting business than they did about my podcast. That was awesome. My friend who I started a business with, he's also my spiritual guru. I said that to him. He thought it was pretty impressive. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm at dependent_Nick. I'm also at iHeartPaintingNJ. And then I've done Facebook Lives. It's so cool. I've done all that. By the way, to add to Neil's point, Ecamm Live is an unbelievable app you can get on a MacBook that is fully inclusive for Facebook Lives. You can go to Periscope. It's amazing. I've used it before. I want to thank you all. I'm extremely grateful for being up here and to be able to tell that story. I'm so happy that Amy's right up front here because she's integral in this whole process. But it's these small moments that help you understand who you are so you can be a better person. And people want to be around you. People want to shake your hand. Because we do podcasting. It doesn't define us. The podcasting doesn't define us. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the day.